Hello friends, today is Tuesday, which means we are live on Tuesday and telling you about the basics of the next generation airship project. My name is Pavel Filipov and next to me is Fedor Konstantinov. Today, we will not only share the most interesting details about our project but also answer your questions. Send this link to your friends. They will be able to watch the recording using the same link. We, the Solar Group company, are engaged in financing various innovative projects. Today, more than 500,000 participants are registered on our investment platform, and over 70,000 people have invested real money in the projects we support. Our first project is the Sovelmash project. As part of this project, we have already built a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge, and innovative facility where the most efficient electric motors in the world will be designed. It is located in the Technopolis Moscow area, a special economic zone near Moscow in Zelenograd. We have indeed essentially and practically completed this project. As of today, the facility is undergoing commissioning, and starting in 2025, it will begin its commercial operations, allowing those who supported the project to expect the first dividends and profits. From the very beginning, we promised more than one project. We spent a long time searching for various interesting and promising business directions and settled on airships, the project we will discuss today. This project has just launched, so we are at a very interesting stage. Meanwhile, one project is completing its funding, while another is just beginning its journey. And this means that you have the opportunity to join it now at the very beginning. For you as investors, this means that you can receive the most favorable investment conditions, which we will also discuss today. Before we move on to the benefits for investors, for those who participate in our investment projects, I would like to talk about the project itself and why we chose it. This question is directed to Fyodor. Fyodor, as someone who has indeed communicated with a vast number of inventors, teams, and engineers, has seen a huge number of ideas, some of which you may not even know about because they were not public. Fyodor, why specifically airships in the end?
Greetings to everyone. Well, why airships? Because airships are actually cool, because they have been forgotten, and now is the time to remember them, and many countries, companies, and analysts know this. Airships, which are lighter than air vehicles, have a rich history and unique capabilities. They have been largely forgotten in modern times, but their potential is being rediscovered. I will tell you now. In fact, the company Solar Group, which is a prominent player in the renewable energy sector, employs a strategic method of attracting investments, known as crowdfunding, which is a rather specific and innovative mechanism in the financial industry. The project chosen by Solar Group must be approved by people and approved in very large numbers. That's one. Two, for crowdfunding to work, the project must be as profitable as possible, so that people not only support with their own money but also feel some benefit from it. Profitability, that is, the project must appeal to a large number of people, be as profitable as possible, from the moment funding starts to commercialization. And three, of course, it must be feasible. There can be really great ideas, but the question is it really possible to implement them? Well, in implementation, the technology itself must be well developed, the team must be capable, talented, brilliant, and so on. And 3, 4, 5, in general, the project must come together. And it turned out that there were really a lot of projects. Over how many? Over 6 years, Solar Group has definitely processed a couple of hundred projects. Different guys came with ordinary ideas like, let's buy here, sell there, up to having linear accelerators with synchrophasotrons built in. We installed this accelerator directly on the oil well, and the oil, under pressure, is essentially reassembled and poured out as pure gasoline. These installations work, which is the most interesting part, and such projects also existed. But the extraction and processing of oil, no matter how commercially extremely attractive it may be, still has a poor relationship with ecology. When selecting a project, people's consciousness, indeed like ours, is that we should not harm the planet, but rather save it, help the ecology in many different ways, and so on. And from all these projects, in fact, one crystallized, namely, airships. It really appeals to many people. Even in Yandex, for example, go to Yandex Stat and see how many times the word airship is searched, or where airships have gone. Many people are Googling this, and the videos on YouTube gather a lot of views. And in general, the question is, where are they? Airships are probably the most environmentally friendly mode of transport among all types of transport in the foreseeable future. It is much more environmentally friendly than airplanes, helicopters, ships, and so forth. In terms of fuel efficiency, it is probably the most effective means of transport regarding its impact on, what are they called? In short, it doesn't require such a huge infrastructure, such as in terms of environmental impact, like with railroads where they cut down forests, build bridges, and so on. An airfield requires large areas. Cars need roads. The number is incredible and there's a lot involved. But an airship can take off from a field and land on the same green field or on a lake. Essentially, it has minimal infrastructure, meaning minimal impact on the environment. And this is really what people like among all these options. A team has formed. Why specifically an airship? Because a full team has come together, from developers to production, training people on how to repair it, fly it, and in general, a complete team has gathered. And this is still the most profitable venture among all that have approached and knocked on Solar's door, which is why it was chosen.
You say that this is the most economical transport. Can you tell us a bit about how we know what an airship looks like, how it works, how it flies, and what advantages it has over other flying vehicles?
Of course I can. Its main advantage is that it doesn't fly. It floats. Just like a regular rowboat released into a lake, it can stay on still water without sinking. It doesn't need to expend energy for this. It simply stays on the water. Similarly, an airship, if balanced, for example, at a certain altitude, will just stay in the air like that boat. And how does it differ from a helicopter at that moment? The helicopter spins its blades to stay in place, which means it consumes fuel. The airship does not consume fuel. Yes, it requires various stabilizing systems because wind can blow from this side or something else. But this is incomparably less. It is much, much less than a helicopter. Almost zero. If solar panels are placed on top of the airship, there will be more than enough solar energy to stabilize it in space and position it somehow. An airplane needs propulsive speed to stay in the air. That is, when it flies forward, lift forces are created on the wing, allowing it to stay in the air. Again, it consumes fuel. This is how the airship differs from airplanes, helicopters, quadcopters, autogyros, ekranoplans, and everything else. The airship can be compared to yachts, boats, and large sea freighters.
And what about safety? Well, actually people remember that they once caught fire. How is it now?
In modern times, nothing burns. There are no airships. In fact, yes, there was some kind of action, international, to undermine the authority of airships and their safety, literally burning the Hindenburg. and everyone has the image in their head of that burning Hindenburg falling, with people running out, and it seems dangerous for the state. But in reality, the Hindenburg was operated for many years before that, flying from Europe to America with hundreds of thousands of flights without any accidents or incidents. It was almost the only way to travel that far. And comfortably, yes, it burned, because helium was used inside. This is all easily searchable. The Americans were the only ones with helium, which they did not sell to the Germans. Therefore, they had to fill it with hydrogen. That's one thing. 2. All the fabrics, coverings, and so on were made from cotton-based materials. It, like hydrogen, ignites easily. And the structural materials were also made from alloys that could catch fire with a slight increase in temperature. In short, the Hindenburg, that very burning one, was a powder keg, so to speak, that only needed a spark. And this powder keg was operated for several years without any accidents. And at the end there was a well-known story where an incredible number of journalists were gathered for some reason, which had never happened before, and it caught fire dramatically. But even then, either a third of the crew was saved along with the passengers, or 2/3.
More than half of the passengers, yes.
Yes, a lot. And the modern airship, firstly, is definitely filled with helium. It is made from non-flammable fabrics, structures, materials, and so on. It has modern control systems, fire suppression, and so forth. One could endlessly list all the reasons it doesn't catch fire, break, or explode, and summarize it all with the fact that there is a resolution from the Scientific and Technical Council of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. I don't remember from which year. It seems from this year or last, where it is clearly stated in black and white that airship aviation technology is the safest aviation technology compared to airplanes, helicopters, autogyros, ekranoplans, and others. That is, it is recognized as the safest. The Scientific and Technical Council, I think, doesn't need further discussion.
In your opinion, what areas of application are currently the most significantly relevant or commercially attractive in the airship sector?
There are 2 paths here. The first path is relatively quick and easy money, which many companies are now planning to tap into in this rapidly expanding and lucrative field of tourism. For example, one can look at what a Chinese company is doing, which is about to produce the AS700 or AS7000, a copy of our Russian Tau-30, intending to use them for tourism as a strategy in the industry. British airlanders are also planning to use them for tourism. These are the companies that want to build one airship so that it can start to pay for itself. The Germans are doing just that. They operate on that model, and everything is going well for them. This is in Friedrichshafen. The company is Neue Zeppelin, where you just flew. But for airships to develop on a large and expensive scale, I wanted to say, in general, it is indeed necessary to create entire transportation systems based on airships, as a matter of fact, and there it will be either passenger cargo, or some special operations for transporting oversized items, or special routes, or monitoring. For example, what distinguishes an airship from a helicopter or an airplane is that it can do something unique. It can actually hover over a specific area with minimal energy consumption, likely covering all its needs with solar panels, hovering there for days or weeks, and conducting monitoring of anything: forests, fields, lakes, cities, borders. In particular, it can perform various types of operations, such as monitoring different areas, including forests, fields, lakes, cities, and borders, specifically for extended periods.
But if we talk about transportation, then, for example, once again, depending on the size, it could be some kind of delivery drone, or it could transport a huge rocket for space launches.
Yes, it can transport a rocket, and it can also transport a briquette. Airships have a mathematical dependency. The larger they are, the more economically attractive they become. Everyone calculates the cost per ton per kilometer. Everyone is thinking, do we need to build airships? Let's calculate how much it will cost to transport 1 ton for 1 kilometer. And they start to compete with maritime transport, conditionally with airplanes and helicopters. It's clear that states win by 100%, but trucks and ships are the most, so to speak, mass cargo transport, and they start to compete with them for some reason. And they say, oh yes, 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 to compete with maritime transport, we need to build a huge one. But building a huge one is expensive and complicated, so we won't build it. But in reality, even for an airship with a carrying capacity of 500 kilo, there are narrow tasks that no one else can handle. Therefore, one should not think in terms of tons per kilometer, but rather think, here is a task that no one is solving. This task has a cost, and an apparatus needs to be created to solve this task within that cost. Conditionally, you close the task and make it profitable. Therefore, yes, from the smallest to the largest, everyone will find their own work. Overall, there is a lot of work for airships. Our population is growing at a crazy pace. The economy must keep up with this pace. The economy consists of flows, information flows and material flows. Well, we are fine with information flows. We have the internet, databases, big data, and so on. But with material flows, as it was 50 years ago, it has practically remained the same. Railways are built, airports are built, airplanes fly, ships sail, ports are built. Yes, something is added here and there, but not at the pace at which the economy is growing and information transfer is increasing. Therefore, new types of transport are vital and necessary. That is, it is necessary to accelerate the cargo flow. This is generally a challenge on the planet, and states fit perfectly into this concept, responding to this demand.
But in this direction, only imagination is the limit. It feels like they can be applied almost everywhere. And now there are already quite a few examples in the world of companies doing something in this direction. So who are these competitors? In which countries? And what are they doing?
Most likely they are not competitors. They are colleagues with whom we are all systematically creating, not an industry per se, but rather to ensure that airships develop, they need to be produced on a large scale. Because right now, the airship is at the stage where the automobile was 100 years ago, meaning that 100 years ago, cars were only owned by kings, presidents, and some very wealthy individuals. Now, almost everyone has a car because they have learned to mass produce them. The task now in modern times is to learn to mass produce airships of all types, sizes, qualities, and specializations. For the south, for the north, low, medium, high, small, large, cargo, passenger, personal, special, for medical purposes, for the mining industry, for oil workers, for space. That is, all of this needs to be produced on a large scale. And right now, no one on the planet is engaged in this. Someone is making 3 airships, someone is making 1. Sergey Brin, for example, has been spending many years on the construction of 1 airship, but he is not a competitor. He is probably a good example of how not to do it. Thank him for doing this, and may he have the health and strength to finish this project. So the more people who are engaged in the production of airships, the better for us. So they are not competitors. But briefly, who are our colleagues? Sergey Brin, he is building 1 rigid airship. The largest, well, he claims, the largest in modern times. That is true. So Airlander is building their airships, which are of a hybrid type. They lift some mass, not only due to aerostatics, but also because of their shape, with increased aerodynamics during movement. Such devices are called hybrid. They are building tourist vehicles. By the way, Brin claims that his airship will be for rescue operations, like the Ministry of Emergency Situations, for situations where a helicopter cannot land and a plane cannot land, but this thing can fly, hover, and perform some useful work. A Chinese company, I don't remember its name, but I wouldn't be able to pronounce it even if I did, has made a copy of our AU-30, modified. This year, they tested it and received certification. Next year, they will make 10 units for their local tourism in a specific area. Of those large ones, probably those who are certainly indefinitely moving, there are a couple more there, but...
By the way, I actually frequently and constantly come across news and information about someone new launching these.
The French, no, they all promise. The French promise to fully build a green and environmentally friendly airship in the upcoming year that will operate solely on electricity generated by solar panels and will also be a tourist vehicle. So far, we have only seen renderings from 5 years ago, and there are actually many such projects in various regions. But there are small projects like in Africa, where the French, together with Africans, assembled a small airship drone, and with this drone they deliver medical supplies to remote villages, which is already a commercial use in the near future. There are Germans who organize tourism with their 2 aircraft. There are Africans who use their small drones and are already making money from it. I don't remember how many there are, but it's a few, 1, 2 at most. There is also a small European company that released a small airship drone for monitoring power lines. Whether it is currently commercial or not, I need to Google it, but I don't remember it being so.
In general, one way or another, there are quite a few companies that are currently launching something. We haven't even talked about stratospheric vehicles today.
A small American stratospheric vehicle was recently and successfully launched safely.
What are such vehicles needed for?
By the way, they launched 2. One was a tourist one in a test version. It turns out to be a Stratosat. It's a shell filled with lifting gas, and here at the bottom, capsules are simply suspended for a certain number of people. Naturally, they didn't put live people in there, but some models instead released it upwards and it landed back down, with the goal of tourism to simply rise into the stratosphere and take a look. In fact, it's a really cool project. If everything works out, it will be great. It's a pity that, as always, it's only designed for the richest, with tickets costing some incredible amounts of money, just like the British are building their airlanders for around $200,000 for one ticket. You will have to pay for this vehicle. Again, everything is done for very wealthy people. This is one stratospheric vehicle that was recently tested. The second stratospheric vehicle is American. It's no longer a sphere. Rather, it's shaped like a small airship. This vehicle is intended for carrying useful payloads, such as communication relays, remote sensing of the Earth, or both, data transmission, and possibly gathering some scientific information and so on. But in reality, the payload aspect is clear. The technology is a bit more complicated. The Americans previously had the Google Loon program, where they launched stratosats into the stratosphere and successfully provided internet not from space or mobile towers, but from the stratosphere. It was a very promising direction, but due to COVID, plus politics, and issues with Google, everything piled up and the project was closed. Now the Americans are launching such projects again, but not in the form of stratosats, rather as stratospheric airships. The first one recently took off. Yes. And why are they flying there at all? If tourism is clear, what is the need for this? Yes, it's needed for competition with space systems, competition with satellites, including orbital, stationary, and small satellites, like those providing internet from Elon Musk's Starlink, for example. Yes, any satellite is launched from here on a rocket. An airship ascends there on its own with a payload. Any satellite hanging in orbit can only fail or burn up in the atmosphere. It cannot be replaced or repaired. An airship with a payload can descend, replace that payload, repair it, extend its service life, and send it back. Satellites launched into space cannot change their orientation. They can slightly change their orbital height if they are low Earth orbit satellites, but overall, once they reach an orbit, they just go. In other words, a stratospheric airship can change its positions. It all comes down to the fact that there is a very large market for stratospheric vehicles, controlled airships, which can provide the same functions as satellites, just much cheaper and more efficiently. Because the altitudes are also different, and everyone is striving for that.
We will also be engaged in this.
We will be actively engaged in ballooning, where any height is possible as long as there is air, and thrilling, exhilarating, and awe-inspiring.
Well, let's discuss in more comprehensive detail about us, about the company Nova, or as it is now called Aeronova. Tell us in depth and thoroughly what will be done within the project, what assets will be created, how the company will earn money, what kind of airships it will make, what it will represent, and where it is headed.
What kind of team is this exactly? Can we please just start with that?
Yes, we can absolutely start with the team right away.
So, what month is it now? The third month of the project has successfully passed, and it will be exactly 2 days from now. And in these 3 months of the project, we have already successfully formed a dedicated team, specifically for the engineering center, which is engaged in direct development, testing, and production. About 20 highly skilled and experienced people have formed in total in this team, and essentially these are the dedicated engineers, designers, and manufacturers who have been involved in the development and operation of airships in modern-day Russia, in their respective fields. We had a company in our country which was actively involved in the production of airships. They made about 15 or 20 various different airship devices, ranging from relatively small 1 or 2 seaters to quite considerably large ones, such as the renowned New Zeppelin. These were the AU-30s. They successfully operated and sold them, not only within Russia but also internationally, selling one in the country of Thailand. And additionally, one was carefully assembled and subsequently sold to the French. And even a number of them were sold to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And they had a type certificate, which was quite unfortunate. But some political troubles happened with this company. In fact, you could say that unfortunately ceased to exist as an entity. But thankfully, the entire team remained intact. And now this dedicated team is coming back here once again to our project in order to continue their life's work and build these magnificent airships. Here we have esteemed candidates of technical sciences and distinguished doctors of technical sciences and honored figures in the field of Russian cosmonautics who create renowned devices for other planets. There are also a lot of students here, and accomplished ones at that. This is the team from MAI. There is an experimental design student-led bureau at Bauman University. And there is also a student center led by Arkady. They are all passionate about aeronautics and dedicated to their studies. So we have a large team of highly experienced adult specialists. There exists a huge foundation in our country regarding airships, both in various materials science fields, and actually even more so in mathematics, with very strong calculators and strong aerodynamicists as well. All of this exists along with an enthusiastic bunch of students who have deep interest concerning aviation technology's future developments too. And most remarkably, since starting this project today alone, I've already received several calls. Every day, such calls happen. They call from institutes, universities, and enterprises. And when they hear about airships, they say, "Seriously?" "Yes, seriously." "Are we going to do it?" "Yes, we are going to do it." "Well, listen, we can do this, that, the other, and so on. We just start offering help." That's it. They say, "Guys, the country needs airships." So, when I started talking about the project team, and all of this came to my mind again, I remembered that an incredible number of people are participating in the project and want to participate in the project. Thank you very much for reaching out and helping. So, the project is actually huge, and it is a people's project. Regarding the idea of drawing what it will be, let's draw it in detail and thoroughly. Once again, this is indeed an investment project for creating a very innovative transportation system, which is based on airships. We named the project Aeronova, which is called Aeronova.
Company.
It turns out to be a company. Why Aeronova?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I only know why new. Aero is clear, well, because it's new. New, if by meaning.
Well, yes, there are some explanations. In general, the company is called Aeronova. It's a project to create a transport system based on airships, or a next-generation airship. This project was initiated by SOLARGROUP, which is engaged in crowdfunding in the fields of science and intensive social technology projects. Within the framework of this project initiated by SOLARGROUP, a certain amount of funds will be raised. That's correct, and something will be done, which I will illustrate here, and we will talk about it briefly. Within the comprehensive framework of the project to create a transport system based on airships, we need to develop and create a robust and fundamental basic cell, or minimum viable product, as it's currently fashionable to say, in various sectors for entire industries. In other words, we must effectively finance, organize, create, and successfully commercialize a new and exciting strategic direction that will consistently generate substantial financial revenue and profits that will build airships, essentially functioning as independent economic cells that will live, develop, and thrive independently in the future. What will it consist of? First of all, a design bureau. The design bureau is already starting to be organized. I already mentioned that about 20 people have been hired, are already working, and are laboring. This design bureau is currently located in rented spaces and will remain in rented spaces until we build the first hangar. More on the hangar later. The Design Bureau, which is renowned for its innovative approaches and cutting-edge solutions, is currently engaged in the intricate process of developing the very first prototype device. This groundbreaking device is set to showcase the remarkable capabilities and vast potentials of the latest modern technologies, along with many more exciting advancements. We have already determined what kind of technological device it will be, in terms of its design and functionality. This device will be an unmanned drone, or optionally manned if someone needs it later, which will be able to carry approximately about 500 kilograms or so over 500 kilometers. It is a small device that can be created very quickly and will be built within 1 year from today. As I have mentioned repeatedly, I've been saying this for a whole month already. It is expected that it will be created within a year, and this device, which is anticipated to be a groundbreaking innovation in the field of aviation technology, will implement all the most modern solutions necessary for airships to become contemporary and integrate into the transport logistics system, ensuring that airships are not only modern, but also highly efficient and reliable in their operations. This cutting-edge device will feature state-of-the-art technology designed to enhance performance and safety. This includes automatic exit from the hangar. You may have seen video recordings of how airships are taken out of hangars. If you haven't, take a look. It's a large airship, and many people hold it with ropes to prevent it from flying away, as it is slowly brought out of the hangar, and then it takes off on its own. But that's the last century. In reality, it's quite a complex task. Well, not complex, just an interesting engineering challenge that needs to be addressed to avoid such issues, because the operation of the airship should be carried out in automatic mode. This includes automatic exit from the hangar, autopilot according to a mission, automatic landing, automatic loading, automatic unloading, return, automatic mooring, and automatic re-entry into the hangar. And all of this, well, these properties and functions should indeed be present in all future airships. But everything will be tested on the first one, which is relatively compact to ensure speed and cost effectiveness. Therefore, a small soft scheme device will be created with such characteristics, and it will have one clear limitation. We will set the height at 12 meters so that it can fit into any aviation hangar, so that nothing new needs to be built for it. We have already understood that its speeds will be around 120 kilometers per hour, with a maximum of about 100 cruising speed. And we have also learned a few other things about it. Currently, the Design Bureau is working on this device, which will serve as a demonstrator of new technologies and organizational capabilities, showing what is possible, and methods will also be tested on it. All right, we'll talk about computer-aided design later, but actually, in the past, previous airships were created the old-fashioned way, on paper. This airship will be created entirely using modern design tools. These are PLM systems, CAD, CAM, CAID, all clear. The Design Bureau will, in a manner of speaking, learn, or rather completely transform, and definitely make use of this in the future. This is what I wanted to say. The methods of serial production will be developed, and this device will already be possible to produce serially and commercially. There is already demand for it, and there is even demand in our country in the far north, in Yakutia and so on, where Soviet aircraft are still flying their last flight hours. There is no replacement for them in general aviation, and most likely we will manage to start producing this device, which will gladly address all these tasks, and it will be economically more feasible. Following this innovative device, a new and advanced rigid apparatus will be meticulously built. This apparatus will be completely different in terms of its carrying capacity and structural design. It will be a state-of-the-art 10-ton rigid type device, which signifies that while the current device is soft and flexible, this new one will be robust and rigid. It will possess the remarkable ability to lift a substantial weight of 10 tons and transport it over an impressive distance of more than 1,000 kilometers. This will be achieved at high speeds exceeding 120 kilometers per hour, ensuring efficiency and reliability. To accommodate this sophisticated device, a specially designed hangar will be constructed, providing the necessary space and facilities for its operation and maintenance. The hangar is mostly not just a garage for storing the airship, it is like an assembly shop, like a repair shop, where they should be produced serially. The hangar will likely be built for 2 airships. It's like a mini factory for airship production. So, if we lift this device into the air in a year, we will start its experimental operation, further certification, and setup for serial production. In 6 months, we will begin to coordinate and approve the tactical and technical requirements for this device, after which we will move on to its preliminary design. When the preliminary design reaches a certain stage of completion, we will understand what specific hangars we will need for this device, and this will take about 7 to 8 months from today. Then, the preparation and subsequent construction of the hangar will begin, along with the development, assembly, production, operation, and certification of these 2 10-ton devices. To build a hangar, it is necessary to acquire land, either by renting it, partnering on someone else's land, or ideally purchasing land for the project, because the tactical aspect won't go away. However, there is also a proposal to buy an aerograd. After the Soviet era, when general aviation was everywhere, many aerograds remain, and many are in a state of survival, often given away for almost nothing. This is, on one hand, bad for us, but in reality, it might be good because we may not have to buy land from scratch. It will be easier to take an existing aerograd. There is already a specific aerograd in mind that can be acquired, which is already on the master plan as an aerograd, with all the work done by the administration. This could save the project several years, and most likely this is how it will be done. In summary, over the next few years, the primary focus will be on the comprehensive formation of a fully operational and efficient design bureau, alongside the establishment of a robust serial production line and the subsequent release and operation of small, innovative devices, initially starting from dimensions of 500 by 500, which have the potential to be further modified and enhanced to reach a capacity of up to 1 ton and a range of 1,000 kilometers. Land will be acquired in the near future. A state-of-the-art hangar fully capable of production will be built, a 10-ton device will be developed, and 2 devices will be produced efficiently in this hangar. They will be certified, and the entire system will be capable of serially producing and selling them. Additionally, a training center is essential, along with a flight testing facility. The LIS Center is based here where the hangar will be built. The training center is likely here too. The training center prepares pilots, technicians, and engineers. It will familiarize them with airships, including how to operate them, maintain them, and repair them. There are many tasks involved. Additionally, there will be a small production, serial production. When I say this, a lot of components, assemblies, materials, and electronics are already being produced, including in our country. And it is not necessary, roughly speaking, to reinvent the wheel anew. An airship is still a complex system made up of many intricate systems. That system is made up of other systems. We need to use ready-made solutions. That's how it is done and will be. There are companies that work with composite materials. There are companies that work with engines. There are companies that work with electronics. The task of the design bureau is to develop the airship in such a way that it can be assembled from what is available, so as not to invent what does not exist. Naturally, but some technologies and processes will have to be retained. These are shell materials, most likely the welding of these shells, and the navigation and piloting complex will also likely but there is a good chance and a great team that is ready to develop this system independently. The brains, so to speak, for the airship, which is the most valuable part of a modern airship. And for this, a small production will still be set up and established in this location, most likely within this very hangar. That is, it will not be a standalone building. Everything can possibly be organized here. Well, the design bureau will most likely be moved as well. So, in the near future, in 3 to 5 years, there will be serial production of drones, prepared serial production of certified 10-ton vehicles, a hangar, land, a training center, and production facilities.
And where can this company step next? This is the first step, right? We are talking about what is necessary for it to start making money. So our task here in this first step is, and then where is the direction of development?
Money? Yes, regarding making money. In fact, the serial production, sales, and operation of these airships will not fully pay off the entire project. But the serial production and sale of 10-ton airships will pay it off quite well. And actually in just a couple of years, or even faster. Because this 10-ton aircraft, with its characteristics, is an aircraft that surpasses the 2 best Mi-8 helicopters in all its specifications. Economically, tactically, technically, and so on. And it will likely be cheaper to produce than the Mi-8. The Mi-8 is the most mass-produced helicopter model in the world. It has many tasks, it is used in many areas, and the cost of this aircraft will be less than the cost of the Mi-8. Since it is twice as good, it can be sold twice as much. You can check how much a brand new one costs. By the way, the serial production of these aircraft can be estimated at a minimum of 1 aircraft per month, which is 12, and a maximum of 2 aircraft per month, which is 24 aircraft. If produced serially for a year, the project will pay off several times over. And the 10-ton model will most likely be the most mass-produced airship model, as it is similar to an air truck. A large number of them are going to be required in various sectors, regions, applications, and industries around the world. As for the future direction of the project, it will naturally and unavoidably move towards the development of comprehensive and efficient transport systems that are based on the utilization of airships. This is because merely building 1 or 2 devices does not effectively organize or establish a fully functional transport system. Yes, a comprehensive transport system involves a wide range of activities and components, encompassing everything from the initial stages of development through the intricate processes of production, rigorous testing, and stringent certification, and ultimately culminating in the establishment of a fully operational transport company. Here, various aspects such as day-to-day operation, maintenance, and other critical elements are included. Building and integrating the entire system with all its complexities and interdependencies is the overarching goal of this ambitious project. And for this it is necessary to create airships of even larger sizes, not just 10-ton ones. These are such as 50-ton, approximately 200-ton, and interestingly 200-300 tons or so. The airship, based on its cost indicators for transporting 1 ton over 1 kilometer, becomes the most efficient mode of transport. Currently, the cheapest mode of transportation is maritime transport, which is widely used and easily visible now, but the logistics system is currently collapsing. Yes, we all see the news about disruptions in these maritime supplies, whether something is blocked in the Suez Canal or elsewhere. In general, maritime transport is currently overloaded because it is the cheapest option available, and the capacity of airships starting from 200 tons becomes even cheaper than maritime transport, and it is much faster than maritime transport overall in general, likely faster than any other mode of transport. Comparing it to an airplane in a race is not worth it, but an airship can pick up cargo directly from a factory at point A and deliver it directly to a warehouse on another continent, eliminating the need to load it onto trucks, transport it to trains, transfer it to an airport, and then load it onto an airplane. The entire cycle would take about the same time as it would for an airship to travel from point A to point B. And the 200-ton models can significantly change the landscape in the world regarding logistics and the economy. There is a video you can watch. It's convenient because you can understand everything quickly. However, many analysts from around the world agree that it is necessary to build 200-ton devices, and there should be quite a few of them. Then this new Air Silk Road will revive the economy, and the company that accomplishes this will be the most valuable on the planet. However, so far no one has even claimed rights to this. Everyone is building small tourist devices. We must reach this goal, and this system, which will be formed in 3 to 5 years through crowdfunding, will move towards these larger devices. Naturally, we will start with 10 tons, then ideally build 50-ton models, and then likely move to 200, 300 tons. This will all become clear gradually. There may be some transitional phases, but that will be seen. The goal is to build a whole range of airships, integrate them into a transport system, from the moment of development to the direct flight, ensuring they are operational for cargo flow. There is a whole support system. They need a place to park, load, take off, unload, and be serviced. In-flight maintenance is also required, along with a lot of permitting documentation, contracts, and so on. The project will strive for this, even with its own resources, conditionally from the serial production of these 2 types of devices.
That is, the company will use its own funds or, again, attract some additional financing, which could be through loans or large investors, or even crowdfunding if necessary. The company will gradually move towards stratospheric platforms
This is about the transport system that needs to be rebooted by adding a large number of 200-ton models. Yes, it seems you can earn from everything, including this, and from 50-ton models, which can vary from huge tourist liners to flying medical centers, to the delivery of oil and gas equipment. For example, a couple of 200-ton models can be made not just possible but necessary for Roscosmos. They need to deliver their rockets to the launch sites, blocks of launch vehicles from manufacturing plants. One of them is in Moscow, and the launch site is at Vostochny. Yes, and logistics are complicated. They need a second vehicle, even several vehicles. We will soon have a new spacecraft. Russian ones are being built. The NKS will soon be decommissioned. They will build a Russian orbital station, and then there will be a lunar orbital station. They are already carefully planning where the cosmonauts will land with these new spacecraft in the near future. And they are thoroughly considering a rescue system for cosmonauts. Nothing more elegant than rescuing them with airships has been devised so far. Therefore, airships will also need to be built for this. This all leads to that big dream. The idea that many 200, 300-ton models will start managing cargo flows on the planet. Yes, and simultaneously, yes, building stratospheric vehicles. Somewhere around the 50-ton model, cargo stratospheric platforms will be created, capable of lifting 1 or even 2 tons to an altitude of up to 20 kilometers as of now. Well, okay, not up to 20 there, but from approximately 15 to around 20. I want to write about 5, but I can't bring myself to do it, but these transportation vehicles will be able to lift 1 to 2 tons at 2 kilometers, and these technological devices, which are designed to be incorporated into the design already within the framework of this project, will most likely be built somewhere near these airships. This is not 3 to 5 years, it's probably a 6 to 7 year project. These are 50 10-ton models, stratospheric ones. And for the 200-ton models, it will take 10 years, maybe faster.
Well, you don't need to wait 10 years to receive the first money. That is, people will receive the first funds here. And we are talking about this so that people understand the prospects, especially when they ask, how much will we earn? The question is whether you are asking about how much companies will earn in 5 years or in 10, because they are completely different companies, but at the same time...
In fact, you can actually start earning in about a year to a year and a half, not just like that. The first demonstration airship that takes to the air can already be commercialized. At the very least, you can place advertisements on it, and that is already profit for the company. Profit for the company, please, that is profit for the investors.
Well, I wouldn't actually call it a demonstrator, since we have, as a matter of fact, another demonstrator that comes before the demonstrator.
Our first one will be a very small and compact airship with a volume of approximately 100 cubic meters. It will already be a little airship that will take off in the upcoming spring season. It will be a full-scale and detailed model of this airship, meaning that if this one has a volume of 2,000 cubic meters, this one will have a volume of 100 cubic meters, but it will be geometrically and structurally similar. It will have all the necessary control mechanics and systems, meaning the rudders and other control surfaces will be in the same proportions and in the same quantity. The engines will be of corresponding power and efficiency in the same locations. The pitch and angle of the propellers. In short, it will be a complete and comprehensive model of this device for testing specifically and thoroughly the unmanned and autonomous control systems, so that it can nosedive directly into the ground, crash into trees or other obstacles, so that everything that could happen happens before we build this device, so that we can fully scale and optimize the system and have the intelligence and smart technology embedded in its control, familiar with the machine and its operations, and nothing terrible or catastrophic happens with it. This will be built quickly and efficiently, within a year or even less, and it will be possible to place advertisements and promotions on it. In fact, when this massive airship takes off, I am already definitely sure that there will be pre-orders for the subsequent device, and quite possibly, indeed undoubtedly, certainly with advance payments, so the profit in the project will appear even earlier than in 3 years.
But the question is whether it should be distributed. Yes, because the first profits and pre-orders are better reinvested into the project itself. There are more people willing to do that.
I believe we need to understand the mood of the investors. Yes, if investors see good dynamics, which we will definitely ensure, and they see that a hangar is about to be built, and there will be serial production of serious devices, of course it is better to reinvest the money and accelerate these processes. Although some processes cannot be accelerated, for example, the certification of this device is already just a bureaucratic procedure. Naturally, it also depends on people, such as the preparation of documents, submission of these applications, and so on and so forth. But something in general, although we live in Russia, cannot be accelerated with money. Yes, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, everything actually looks as maximally as possible attractive, which is why SOLARGROUP got involved. Because airships are important and essential, airships are needed, that's a fact. The fact that we can build them is yet another solid fact that we will definitely demonstrate. The company that first builds modern airships will be like a unicorn in the market, in the industry. Have you seen modern airships? You haven't. No one has seen them, because they don't exist.
I have seen one. Some kind of one I have seen.
You flew in Germany. The fact that it is with us in the same time, modern, but far from modern. There, after all, it goes. You saw 2 little people came out, 2 went in. Tech view, yes?
And the Chinese built a similar one. That is, this is far from a modern airship. It is just a copy of the airship that flew 100 years ago, just made from what was available now.
Well, as it happens, it turns out that Fedor mentioned what will be done. You can clearly see the circle split in half. If I draw a bit more, let's say that 49% of this company will belong to the investors, those people who are joining the project today. And right now, at this very moment in time, you can get your share of the company. So, how to do this? You can use our investment platform, SOLARGROUP, select the new Generation Airship project, and invest the amount you consider right for yourself in this particular instance. At the moment, you are purchasing investment shares, and you can of course buy 1 investment share, 2, but the strength of our offer is that we suggest buying them in bulk, and in that case, if you purchase them in bulk, you receive a discount on the shares, and we call this a package of investment shares. The minimum package is $1,000, with an average investment of $2,000 to $3,000. Moreover, you can pay this amount not in one go, but in installments. For example, choose a package for $2,000 and pay $100 a month for 20 months. The question is, why pay for 20 months if you could just save up those $2,000 and invest later? And here, it is important to understand that our project is divided into 20 funding stages. With each stage, the project goes through various tasks and moves from the first to the second, from the second to the third. What changes? The investment conditions change, that very discount. In other words, at the first stage, by investing $1,000, you acquire more shares than if you invest $1,000 at the 10th investment stage. Everything is very simple and clear. At the first stage, you as an investor are taking on much more risk because right now, being in November 2024, you hear that the first little airship will take off in the spring. And when the little airship takes off in the first spring, the risks for the project will be completely different. They will be lower. People will see this and invest, but they will no longer be able to get the investment conditions that exist, for example, today. That is, risk and investment conditions correlate with each other. Moreover, today, our project has started its funding, but we are not yet at the first stage. We are currently at the preparatory 0, or as we also call it, the pre-launch funding stage. This is the stage when we publicly prepare this project together with you, so to speak, and fully develop it for further funding when our websites, contracts, and financial legal schemes are being prepared. Everything is to ensure that everything is clear, legal, transparent, and accessible. At the current pre-launch stage, which will end very soon, I think you will find out the exact date at the conference, which will take place on November 16th in Moscow, by the way. You can come. If you haven't registered yet, please do so. I don't know if there are any spots left, but still. And when we move from the current pre-launch funding stage to the first funding stage, the investment conditions will worsen by 2 times. That is, today it is twice as profitable to invest than at the first funding stage. You will receive twice as many shares by investing the same amount of money. Pay attention to this. If you are interested in what we are doing, if you are interested in the airship, judging by your questions, and I see that you like the project, invest today to secure favorable investment conditions for yourself, and in that case,
Let's summarize briefly again. So, if I buy shares today, where is my profit, and how will I eventually receive it?
today, yes, we haven't even talked about that yet. The most interesting part is ahead. You talked about how the profit is generated today.
So, this company right now is LLC Aeronova. You don't need to Google it. The name will only appear on the internet in 5 days. Yes, this is LLC Aeronova, which will own 49% of a foreign company, the share of which can be purchased through a personal account. As soon as the company is ready for incorporation and going public with an IPO, and I believe this will happen sooner than in 3 to 5 years, because the devices will already be flying, the airships will be built in full swing, and the production of large devices will be established serially, then a serious company will be ready for an IPO. The company will be reorganized into a joint stock company, go public, and then it will be up to you to decide in your personal account. You can click either, yes, I want to become a shareholder and take my shares, or leave them in trust management with SOLARGROUP and also receive significant dividends through your personal account, just as they are accrued on each share. In general, that's the whole mechanism.
Yes, ultimately indeed. Those who want to receive a part of the enterprise, who want to own the company directly, will be able to exchange their shares for stocks, meaning they can own shares directly or through SOLARGROUP.
So, if I invest today, it turns out I get more shares for 1 ruble invested than I would if I invest, say, in a year. For 1 ruble, I will receive fewer shares if it's just my ruble. Right now, it will yield more money than in a year, but still, in any case.
Currently, for every dollar invested, you receive an average of 1,000 shares. Once we move to the first stage, you will receive an average of 500 shares for every dollar invested. In a year, it might be around 250 shares for each dollar invested. Again, why dollars? The project seems Russian, the company is in Russia, and this webinar is being conducted in Russian. In fact, we have investors from over 190 countries. There are probably no countries from which we do not have registrations or investors in one way or another, and to make the project international, we use this international currency in the personal account. Plus, it helps protect against inflation. This is also a question, as inflation in Russia, the dollar exchange rate may change, and all your estimates and calculations may not match. When we calculate the project in dollars, there is a much greater chance that nothing like that will happen. So far, the dollar remains the most reliable currency in the world. So, friends, join the project. We have provided you with comprehensive and detailed information today about what we do, how we do it, how we plan to earn, and how you can join what we are doing. If you have any questions left, you can write them. You can write on vKontakte, YouTube, RuTube, or any other platform. We are now moving on to the questions. I see that you are already writing questions, so let's start with the ones that are already there. Yes, so, the first question. Tell me, Has Solar Group already become a co-founder of the new one, or is this only planned?
It is only planned to be done in the near future. I think it will be done before we move to the first stage. This will be part of one of the points.
So, as you know, regarding the new one, there are various complex legal and intricate bureaucratic matters and processes currently going on, including this one, which is in line, right?
Yes.
What project will come after the airships? We are not thinking about that yet. For now, there is something, or we are thinking. Maybe you have some thoughts.
I have a couple of really cool technologies in mind.
Can you tell about them? For example, if there was a need to launch a project right now. You know, something interesting that you would like to work on yourself?
Yes. Well, why me? There are just people, engineering teams who... You won't voice it. There is no point. It is not ready yet. The airships are ready. And if right now, it is also related to energy, with revolutionary engines, but with fuel ones. So, these are definitely not electric engines.
The sound quality impressed us today.
Like this. So, someone watches the webinars on Tuesdays, when the Tuesday webinars have the same information for beginners. If you are watching the Tuesday webinar for the first time, why are you doing this? Watch on Thursdays.
I am a beginner in investing. Please tell me what to expect from investments in dirigible. In principle, a person asked this question at the very beginning of the webinar. I hope that during our hour-long webinar, we answered this question.
We did not mention the theoretical value of the company, the value of the project, to calculate it. That is, by how many times it will multiply. Theoretically, by how many times the investments will multiply.
You mentioned about the total amount of funding.
Didn't say 3-5 years, didn't mention the total amount.
And it seemed to me, yes, it seemed that you said the total amount of funding over 3 to 5 years that we plan to attract is $100 million. With this scheme, with this business model, the expected income of this company after taxes and everything else is about $350 million per year. Yes, this ensures the serial production of 10-ton trucks in maximum quantity. Yes, we are not currently taking into consideration the stratospheric direction with devices designed for the stratosphere here, and we didn't even talk about it today. We are not taking potential external orders at this moment, because some company may come and say, I need a specific device for my specific tasks. One option will be made for it. That's the same cosmos we were talking about. Yes, whether 10 devices have been made, that is also additional income, and who knows how additional it is. It may be one of the main ones, but if we don't consider all these business directions, only what Fedor talked about, then this is already the profit that more than covers all the investments made in the project faster than in a year. At the same time, there is a standard clear assessment, a market assessment of companies. A company is valued at 3 years of its profits. In this case, with such mathematics, we can expect a valuation of $1 billion.
So did you say 300-something million per month? Per year, why?
Per year.
Per year. 3 profits per year.
Billion. Yes, billion. At the same time, we are confident that this estimate will be higher because, again, this is a classic estimate. If you look at the stock markets, all companies that do not have any financial problems are worth much more than 3 times their annual profits. They are worth 10, 20, and there are companies that are worth 40 times their annual profits. There are unprofitable companies that... There are also unprofitable companies that are still valued. It results in an infinite number of annual profits. Therefore, in reality, investors do not evaluate based on numbers. This is a standard valuation. For example, if we want to sell this company to someone, they will ask how much. This is how a business is valued. But in reality, investors usually evaluate differently.
The yield of one share.
The yield of one share, yes. one of the criteria, or, what is more important, not even the current yield, but the prospect of future yield. Because why buy a share of Apple if it is 40 times its annual profits? Why buy a business that takes 40 years to pay off? So people say, well, I believe that in 10 years Apple will earn twice as much as it does now. That is the perspective. Therefore, valuation and all of this is such a thing. There is also some psychology involved. But if we rely not on someone's guesses, but purely on business metrics, then here they are as we named them. What will the dividend policy be for the new one? What portion of the income after the project's implementation is planned to be directed towards dividends? After the successful implementation of the project's goals, the dividend policy is half of the profit for investors.
We will most likely formalize this in some memorandum. That half of all income will go to dividends, and the second half will most likely continue to develop the business.
So, will this be when the company is already incorporated, or can this also be recorded somehow?
Within the company, before it transitions into a joint stock company and subsequently goes public, if there is any profit generated, it will need to be clearly agreed upon and documented how SOLARGROUP, as a key entity, will be ready to return or distribute this profit.
There is an idea to outline the rules of the game to make them more transparent, so that even if, hypothetically, top management wants to reinvest all profits, they will still be obliged to distribute some amount. Some companies have such rules.
Yes, but we can leave. Roughly speaking, this is not even a step back. We can leave the possibility of reinvestment, taking into account, for example, a general vote through investors' personal accounts. Otherwise, they might say, why invest? Where is the memorandum from?
Well, by the way, there is also such a rule. If a company does not pay dividends, it effectively has money left in its account, which means the company's capitalization grows. Often, when a company pays dividends, its valuation drops and then grows back, because essentially the company took, say, $1 billion and paid it out somewhere, becoming $1 billion poorer. Therefore, even if dividends are not paid, the valuation still grows. A cash cushion is also good for business. So, let the bubble be surrounded by a rigid part, like a hoop. This hoop can be rotated and have hydrostabilization.
All of this is in the Department of Advanced Technology Research. All ideas are actually recorded because people write a lot of real ideas.
And how can one access the future website if a person wants to contribute in some way, or just through a chat in Telegram, so that they can connect directly with specialized professionals?
Well, for now, the specialists have an incredible amount of tasks.
Well, yes, if everyone writes directly. But we also need to organize some kind of press center, or you will be the one they all write to. For now.
Yes, we have a Telegram for questions and suggestions. There is a separate section where you can write anything you want, and the history doesn't go anywhere. We periodically, once a week or once every 2 weeks, compile everything from there into tables.
In general, if you have suggestions, join the Telegram. In the official Telegram group, the project's Telegram group, there are questions and suggestions.
And in this section, when there is a separate one, you can read and see how much they intersect with your thoughts, because people's ideas really align, and that's a fact.
So, can we already see the footage from the experimental fields of the model somewhere? And the results? Or have they not been prepared yet? Well, apparently since the launch.
No, come on, this will only be launched in the spring.
No, with the launch of the stratospheric apparatus, I understand. Well, yes, the video footage from the experimental field models, including additional details about the setup.
Experimental field model.
probably entire stratospheric system.
Yes, you will see when the experimental ones are launched. No, if it's about the stratospheric ones, the video is being prepared. Recently, we launched, for those who are not aware, we indeed started a series of experimental launches aimed at testing radio technical equipment, which will later be suspended and used in an experiment with a long-drifting stratospheric apparatus. The goal of the experiment is, in fact, to develop a system of long-drifting devices, plus a radio communication system for the future creation of a chain of stratospheric probes to ensure communication along the Northern Sea route or across the equator in southern countries. And within the framework of this small task, experimental launches, peak launches began. That is, a peak launch, when the apparatus, the equipment on the Stratosat, rises and descends back on a parachute. And during this flight, one can certainly experiment with radio communication, check and test the equipment. There will likely be 3 such peak launches. For scientific experiments, this is something repeatable, not just once, to gain experience and statistics, and later this equipment will be attached to a long-drifting stratosat, which ideally should first enter the circular polar current and circulate there, transmitting radio signals, sending information. And if this experiment is successful, then a network of such devices will be launched. We have already conducted the first experimental peak launch, and the video is undoubtedly being prepared along with the report.
Are there any renders of the airships we are talking about?
You will see at the conference, or you can watch online, or you can visit in person, or watch online. After the conference, all these materials will be made publicly available, as there is not much time left.
So, is it like exactly 10 tons of payload, the useful load, or the total mass of the airship? Exactly.
Payload.
Where is it planned to rent land for the hangar, and for what duration is it planned to be rented?
Ideally, of course, to buy. But it is quite likely, or highly likely, that renting will be possible. If renting for approximately about 50 years, there are 2 options. One good, the other ordinary. There is a special economic zone dedicated specifically to aerospace, with airfields in Ryazan, for instance. In particular, you can enter that aerospace cluster to receive benefits and preferences, and there, at that airfield, rent land for 50 years, build the first hangar, and serially produce these devices. In the future, many hangars will need to be built in every region and in every country, so it's just a question of where the first one will be. Either in Ryazan or near Zhukovsky, most likely.
And Ostreltsov and Nickel 63. Are you familiar with these terms and their role in scientific research or any related field? Do you have any idea what that is? Solar Group needs to take this on. It will change everything and unite everyone.
And Ostreltsov seems to be a person who works with isotopes, radio. I understood that. I've long wanted to meet this person, indeed, the inventor. I've also been following him. He is somewhat ambiguous, but a good person, while the technologies are ambiguous. They had some kind of accelerator, made by an inventor who is no longer alive, and Ostreltsov, I don't remember if he mentioned whether he has this working accelerator, or if he knows how to make it, or not. In general, there are so many unknowns, and these are still radioactive materials. This involves working with reactors and so on. It's airships, and that's quite complicated because aviation certification and so on are on the edge. and working with radioactive materials, I think, until we are allowed. Not at all. Not at. Although, when the Solar Group grows to the point where we start launching projects in other countries, there are countries with more lenient legislation regarding radioactive materials and experiments with them for private individuals. But Astraltsov is already quite old. He is in a hurry.
The MS-21 aircraft has been certified since 2012. How quickly will the airship be certified?
In approximately a year?
As members of the new team, they have indeed already done this.
It was just built in a year, certified in a year.
If we are going to take a ready aerograd, then why build a hangar? If there is already a hangar there, if I'm not mistaken, or is a modern hangar still needed?
According to the data on this type of apparatus, it will most likely, indeed very likely, certainly be there. This is not a fact, but there is indeed a probability. This apparatus is already very large and spacious, and it requires the construction of its own separate, especially designed hangar, not just as a garage, but like a factory for producing such apparatuses. There is one enterprise in Krasnoyarsk, which was laid out specifically for the production of large river-sea ships, and there are workshops suitable for producing one such apparatus. And I have not seen or encountered other facilities of that size. Production should still be remarkably modern. After all, one airship can be built in Krasnoyarsk, assembled there, taken out, and flown away, ultimately, undoubtedly. But we are talking about serial, preferably mass production aimed at reducing costs, researching the cost price, and making these apparatuses accessible. Serial production means designing and building airships. They were built and designed 100 years ago. And indeed, the mission of the Aeronova company is to be the Ford of the airship world. To achieve this, a factory needs to be built.
Everyone should have an airship.
Ideally.
But with Ford, yes, it's a good analogy. To turn something unique, expensive, and inaccessible into a mass product. So, is a stratospheric airship more expensive than a transport airship?
It may be a bit more expensive in development, but likely slightly cheaper in production.
And the main investor of the Mi-8 helicopter was the government. Are we planning to collaborate with them? With whom? With the government?
We will have to collaborate with many governments and regulatory bodies. Of course, naturally, Aeronova will cooperate with everyone because large cargo flows are ultimately controlled by the government. Large transportation, like the grain deal, for instance. Roughly speaking, the logistics of raw material transportation are controlled at the highest level. Oil is the same, metals, and so on. Goods are a bit simpler, although there are customs and sanctions involved. In any case, even down to the banal certification of the airship, we will have to contact the government. Whether there will be any collaboration, i.e., public-private partnerships, I don't know if it's needed. Right now, the government is actually focused on moving all business into private hands. Russian, of course, but private, because the government is following a development scheme from socialism to capitalism. Capitalism implies that private companies operate while the government only orders services. Recently, this has been very pronounced. So, cooperation will happen in any case. Direct public-private partnership, but only if something specific is needed. If a special project is required, a separate subsidiary can be allocated, no problem.
Why go for an IPO? Do you want to attract capital for the development of other areas or for business growth, or is it just a listing? Yes, what we are talking about is more accurately described as a listing on the exchange because there is no goal to attract capital. If we were raising money through an IPO instead of crowdfunding, then it would be a classic IPO. There isn't a critical error here because in the definitions of IPO, one of the goals allows for issuing shares without attracting financing. That is also an IPO. You might not want to attract any investments. Perhaps you just want to sell part of your shares as an investor and, as they say, cash out. Well, that's also done by people who have built billion-dollar companies. Therefore, an IPO is not always about attracting capital, but generally, yes, it is about attracting capital. So, in our case, yes, it is more of a listing. IPO is not a mistake, but listing is more accurate and probably clearer.
So we have a public IPO.
Yes, we have a public IPO, we can say that. When is the next launch of the airship?
Stratostat.
It says aerostat.
If it's the stratosphere, then probably on the weekend. If it's the airship, then we haven't planned to launch the airship yet, only the dirigibles.
So, the launch that took place was a stratosphere, right?
Well, let's call it that. In fact, we need to work a bit on the terms and definitions. Even with the word dirigible, conductor, it's a French word derived from the word controlled.
By the way, I mentioned this, and there were many suggestions in the chat.
You see, there hasn't been an ergonomic name that has appeared for this type of airship.
So, is the accumulated money stored in deposits?
Accumulated where? Here, regarding the fact that the money is being transferred to the project, is it being saved?
Well, yes. So Peter probably thinks that money might be accumulating for the creation of a dirigible and something else. And probably they are not being spent on any basic needs yet, but they are already being spent, right?
Well, for now, the pace is such that a little is accumulating. But you must understand that investments are coming from almost 190 countries. And it takes more than a couple of months for this rupee to turn into a ruble.
Yes, well, in general, the money that is currently coming into the project is not sitting in deposits, right? Are they being spent, or is something sitting in deposits, or how is it now?
For some time. To be precise, at the very beginning, all the money was spent because equipment, computers, laboratories were purchased, offices were rented, and so on. Samples of materials were ordered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, the work started actively. There will be a couple of months when we will need to accumulate. Is it necessary to put some money into a savings account for a couple of months? I think not. There won't even be 6 months for the money to sit idle. If it turns out that project funding is quite active, then most likely the money will need to be placed somewhere to sit and work.
It is now clear why the question arises. When the bank rate is over 20%, people start calculating and think, what if I take a couple of 100 million, deposit it? I can do everything. I can even not do the project and just pay dividends, you know. But in reality, it's not quite like that. This indicates that money is being devalued, and in such moments,
it's better to create means of production.
Yes, one needs to get rid of money. At the very least, buy a television for oneself, but ideally invest that money somewhere, because all assets will grow.
It's better to buy what you wanted because something strange happens with money. I bought an Opel Corsa, I don't remember how many years ago, for 380,000 rubles. Now, after 10 years, it costs 500. A new one costs 500,000 on the market, in the same year, in the same condition. I think that's funny.
Yes, therefore, keeping money even in deposits is unclear how good of an idea that is, but it might be for a term.
It's better to invest in means of production, purchase machines, equipment, and create something useful, like airships, than to just stash that money away. It will simply devalue while everything else becomes more expensive, and someone will profit from it. It's unlikely that a person who puts their money in the bank will win more than the bank will.
So, what are the results of the previous launch of the balloon? The stratospheric balloon is not available yet, right? Did you say?
Well, we will make a big video about the results. In fact, this is just an experimental launch out of 3 consecutive launches. What are the results? Some systems worked, some systems did not work. There, we also launched 2 consecutive devices, one silently and the other live. The one that was silent performed better, worked well, and ascended almost 30 kilometers in a more or less standard manner. The second one had many system failures. The communication satellite system failed, and the broadband video transmission system failed after some time. The analog system worked, but the digital one on the ground behaved poorly, and the GPS that the ground station was guided by dropped out. In general, all of this is being corrected and changed to ensure that the second launch can be carried out without these issues. But to summarize, the experiment was successful because it happened, and now we know what to do next, what the next experiment will be. Overall, I understood that it is most profitable to take the maximum amount of monthly payment you can afford and pay it off in 50 months. Well, look at it from the perspective of the total amount you can contribute. This is the most advantageous.
Of course, if you take an installment plan for as long as 50 months, you can choose a total amount of $50,000 because paying off $50,000 over 50 months is easier than over 10 months. In this regard, you are right. If we talk about the benefits of investment conditions, then taking a package for $50,000 as a one-time payment is more advantageous than an installment plan for 50 months. You can log into your personal account, where a variety of investment packages are listed in detail. Each package comes with specific conditions and attractive discounts, which are clearly displayed next to each installment and each package. Accordingly, the higher the discount offered, the greater your potential savings will be, allowing you to maximize your investment returns. In your account, you can meticulously compare everything point by point, ensuring you make the most informed decision possible. This feature answers all your queries regarding the inventor you mentioned, providing comprehensive insights and relevant information about their contributions and significance in the investment field. Nickel-63 is the safest radiation for humans, and the Bogomolov accelerator has already been built. But where is the Bogomolov accelerator now? Important question. This is an eternal battery with a half-life of 100 years. Right now, it is unreasonably expensive, but Ostretsov has the technologies and patents on how to make nickel very cheap. I don't know. I found this Ostretsov. Whether it's about him or not, there's an article here on Wikipedia.
I took a quick look at him.
Igor Nikolaevich.
There are many Igor Nikolaevichs, and I need to go meet him right now. As for the Bogomolov accelerator, I still can't understand where it is, just from the general information available, and from Ostretsov's channel, on Telegram, on YouTube. Yes, but still, nuclear physics is actually quite a thing.
Ambiguous. Well, it's described as Rostov-on-Don. I don't know where he is now. If in Moscow, then here. In Moscow or in Rostov? Listen, it seems to be in Moscow. Okay, well, let's move on. There's also a question about the Au-30 airship. They say that inside the MCAD, the military did not allow it to fly. Will our airships be allowed?
Well, the country is actually huge, and the planets are even bigger. The MCAD there is not even a point from a needle in general. Most likely, they will eventually allow it. For example, relatively small airships flew calmly and steadily up to the third transport ring, such as... Yes. The only question is to prove their safety. That's one. Secondly, the times should be a bit different, and everything should calm down. And thirdly, people, the government, and our standardization system for permits, regulations, and so on must get used to this. As always, it must naturally go through a certain process and procedures. As usual, it is important to remember that. But overall, I repeat, the MCAD is a pixel on the map where airships are needed. In the center of Moscow, they are only needed for entertainment.
What do you know about series of airships? Atla 35, 75, 135.
Atlas or Atlant, in general, they were called differently there. These were supposed to be those airships. They have already started being designed by the team that is currently sitting to the left behind the wall. But there were significant problems with the company, problems with financing, and the guys worked for free for an extremely long time, actually. Yes, and unfortunately, the project was shut down due to a lack of the necessary financial resources, because everything was very complicated with the project, and the resources were not available at the time. Initially, the company was in Russia, a Russian one. Then a certain force majeure occurred. The owner of the company changed. The general director changed. The principles of company management, financing, budgeting, and profit distribution changed. The company was brought to bankruptcy by a mysterious, unidentified party, while all the developments were already created within it. Then, conditionally, the company's headquarters moved to another country. The engineering team stayed here, and in that country, funding was sought without the engineering team, while the engineers sat here without pay. The system simply completely collapsed. The devices were certainly mortgaged. The engineers themselves say that their form is certainly ambiguous and not optimal. It was just a certain desire of the headquarters that moved to Israel. There are more optimal forms, and we will show them to you soon.
So, is the airship's body planned to be metal or synthetic?
Composite. Will there be metal in the composite? It is quite likely that there will be a thin layer. Will there be carbon fiber in the composite? Most likely, there will be. Will there be any other materials in the composite? Of course there will be.
So, a few more questions. At 1 hour and 40 minutes, we're on air. Let's wrap up. What are the most dangerous moments in the project that you see? And is there a solution for them? Although if there is a solution, if the problem is clear, there is a solution, then it is not really dangerous.
Overall, indeed, there are no problems. Dangers always exist, but these are
most likely some unforeseen things. So, well, as I said, for me, this idea is also new, that a dirigible can be lifted into the sky. This is basically the simplest task. It is harder to create a transport system, or rather first to establish serial production, to make dirigibles effective, economical, and generally correct.
Here we have no risks. We will have an ideal person responsible, and they are already responsible for their serial production. There are no dangers at all. But creating a transport system is already more complicated, and the danger lies precisely here. For example, there are several certification systems. The American system for certifying aviation technology, the European one, and the Asian one, while Russia has its own somewhat conditional system. So, building a transport system based on dirigibles. Okay, but which markets? To the Asian ones. Oh, so it is possible, for example, to obtain Asian certification of the sample and build a system in Asia. Yes, but you will not fly to Europe. Aha, so we get a European certificate. It is conditionally validated there in Asia, but the design bureau is located in Russia. Of course, there are questions. Not all European countries like design bureaus from Russia. Not in all, for example. There is one in Bulgaria, where it can be done. In general, the danger is indeed precisely that. It's not even a hazardous situation. It's increasingly and certainly clear to everyone that the world is becoming multipolar. And now the question is, how much these poles will abstract themselves from each other with their regulatory and legislative barriers. And by that time, I think, when it becomes abundantly clear to them what will happen next. We should already be able to build airships serially at that point in time. And further on, there is a slight uncertainty regarding the geopolitical storm we are currently in. The only uncertain moment in the project, but overall, building airships and learning to produce them serially will not be a problem. How to contact Fyodor. Write him on Telegram, directly in Telegram, in pre-launch, like, Fyodor, how to get in touch with you.
In this chat, just write, "Are you reading there?"
Well, yes, of course. You can put it in a separate tab, not in pre-launch, where everything is mixed, but there for questions and answers, you can write there.
Well, and the last question, is there a plan to contact extraterrestrial civilizations?
We have any radio communication, even optical laser. Everything works at the speed of light, and the emitted signal from here to any other civilization in the universe will take longer than, probably, our solar system can exist in its entirety, as we know it. So, let's say it's not an incredibly top priority task within the grand scheme of things, in the context of this project, and therefore, ultimately, that's for sure. No, well, how everyone would be interested, but it's radio communication first, not really radio. Some other kind of communication needs to be invented first to connect with them.
So, well, friends, we answered your questions. There were many questions. Thank you very much for your activity. Don't forget to like, share, especially since there was a presentation today. So send it to friends who know nothing about us. They can watch the recordings at the same link, and I'm sure they will join us.
And come on Thursday. There will be news webinars. Yes, we will just talk about what has been done in the project, what has been done in the last week. Maybe we will invite a guest, most likely. Well, we call the guest our designers, whom we sit here with, and just talk to them, paying a little more attention to answering technical questions that are gladly written and answered there on Thursday. So see you very soon.
Bye, everyone.